the long awaited for part 2. The meeting, the engagement and the marriage of Florence Chandler to James Maybrick. The year is 1880 and two very, very different people are boarding the same ship. The SS Baltic. Well, it could be the SS Britannic, but I'm going to go with Baltic. I've done a lot of research and I cannot find any information on these two ships. I can find the year before and the year after, but not this one. So the SS Baltic. The SS Baltic is leaving New York to travel to Liverpool, one of the largest shipping ports at the time. James Maybrick is a cotton merchant and he's travelling back home to Liverpool on these modern ships that could do the journey in less than 9 days now. 9 days, imagine that. They can do them in 4.5, 3 at a push, I think now. Anyway, he was a 42-year-old Liverpudlian, a classic Victorian, portly gentleman with a broad face and large eyes and a droopy moustache. He was a confirmed bachelor. He'd called off one engagement to one of the Jannion sisters. One of the Jannion sisters became Mrs. Briggs. Keep that in mind for the rest of this series. Mrs. Briggs. It was said of him that, business-wise, for business transactions, that he was an upright, honourable man. He appeared very busy and he appeared quite popular in the business part of his life. People liked him. James had 3 brothers, 2 of whom were in the shipping business. One in Manchester, one in Liverpool, and his other brother lived in London. He was a musician. Florence Elizabeth, or Flossie as we now know, Flossie was travelling alone. She was off to visit her mother in Paris, France. She was 18 years old at this time, travelling alone at 18 years old. Okay. She was a Southern belle born in Mobile, Alabama. She was 5'2", petite, pretty and spirited. That's a lovely way of describing someone, isn't it? Spirited, especially back then. And she had violet blue eyes. She spoke fluent French and German because her mum lived in France and her stepfather was German, and displayed the sophistication of a young woman who had spent a lot of time in her childhood in Europe. So if you spend a lot of your childhood in Europe, does that mean you're sophisticated? Because if that's the case, I'm sophisticated. On the ship, for the first few days, it was rough seas. And you've got people who haven't voyaged before. And they were a little bit worried, obviously. But Mr. Maybrick took it upon himself to trolley on round everybody in first class, putting them at ease. Because he'd been on a number of ocean crossings. He had sailed upon Brunel's Leviathan, the Great Eastern, after all, which was a massive ship back then. So, straight away, he's putting it out there that he's got loads of money, because he can do all these journeys to and from, Norfolk, Virginia, to Liverpool on multiple times. And he's travelling first class. So he's networking now, he's having a chat, he's wandering around, he's getting business people's information, he's finding out who's who, what's what and where's where. So he must have spotted Miss Chandler because she's petite, she's got pale skin, she's auburn hair, beautiful, well, pretty she says. So he must have noticed that this young woman was travelling alone and where she was from. And she would know that New Orleans and Galveston were the only places to beat Norfolk, Virginia as a cotton port. While James was having conversations with everybody in first class, he would be having extra champagne and expensive whiskey and expensive cigars. He would be putting his money out there, so to speak. He would also be talking about his business. The likes of 250,000 bales of cotton were going through Liverpool. Whether or not they were going through his business, he didn't let that slip. But talking about letting things slip, conversations with Flossie. Flossie travelling alone would have been an interest. Couples would be, asking her why you're alone. Why would such a pretty young girl be travelling alone? And she would say, oh, it's all right, I'm a seasoned traveller. I've travelled many, many times over the Atlantic. My mother, the Baroness, lives in Paris, France. My stepfather, the Baron, lives in Germany. I've been to London many a time. I've been to Liverpool many a time. So she's let it slip that her mum's a Baroness, which means she's got money. So maybe that's where the interest is. So somehow the two meet. And maybe Florence was looking towards James as maybe a father figure or something like that. She was attracted to his success because that's what he was telling her, and his apparent solid respectability. Maybe she wanted to lead a bit more of a secure life than the life she had with her mother, traipsing around all over the place, Europe and America and whatever. Or maybe it's because James was like her mother, reckless and charming, not quite what he appeared, because he did exaggerate some of his successes. Say that with no teeth in. Maybe they just got on, because she was so used to being around older men. Being with her mother and her mother's circle, she mixed with older men rather than the younger ones. So maybe it was a genuine attraction. Whatever it was, they were spending a lot of time together. A lot of time playing cards, promenading on the deck and talking. And they found out that they had a lot in common. They liked cards, and she liked going to the theatre, and she liked riding. Horsemanship was their main commonality. After all, she had been to Aintree just last year. It was a shame that it run 2 weeks ago. Oh, on a side note, the horse that won was the Empress on at 8-1. It's amazing what you find out on Google. Anyway, so that was their common ground. Liverpool, Aintree, horse riding, money, the card tables. She'd win. Did he let her? And she'd lose. She flirted with him. She enjoyed his company. She enjoyed him escorting her from dinner to the ladies' dining room while he went off to the gentleman's lounge. She enjoyed his company. So as the SS Baltic steamed across the Atlantic, it had become clear to everybody in first class that Mr. Maybrick and Miss Chandler were spending a great deal of time together. Some, as they would because they're busybodied, questioned the propriety of the middle-aged bachelor spending so much time to an underaged, unchaperoned young female. Some were shocked by the mere idea of a single lady travelling alone. Single lady travelling alone. I don't mind that much, but, we'll go back in the day. It didn't happen. You had chaperones. And others were quite charmed by the ship's romance. A little ship's romance. How fabulous. And were titillated by the sight of the couple strolling along the deck and sitting down together at a concert. If others on board were concerned about the age difference, Florence wasn't. She came from the American South, where young ladies were adept at flirting with men considerably their seniors. I wonder if that's true. Have to ask. She hailed from international sets. She honed her skills on the French, the German, the English, the Americans. And with older men, she felt at home. So 7 days into this journey on the Britannic from New York to Liverpool, the ship's captain rang a bell, and he said, apparently, because I don't know because I wasn't there, "It is my pleasure to inform you that we have made the Atlantic crossing in the usual excellent time, upon which the White Star Line prides itself. We have moved at a steady 16 knots, and we shall land in Liverpool in the morning. It has been, I think, a speedy crossing, as can be managed by any steamer in service at this remarkable time." He paused and looked around the room, his eyes seeming to search for a particular table. "It is the custom," he went on, "I propose a toast to Her Majesty, and often I accept a toast to the ship and her performance. But this evening I wish to offer first toast to another, for the events have moved on swiftly on board the ship since we sailed from New York. I think perhaps most of you know to what, or should I say, to whom." The captain picked up his wine glass and held it in mid-air. "I raise my glass to the health of two who have met aboard this ship in only 7 days ago. I believe it was at tea at table 14 as we steamed from New York, and who informed me this very afternoon of their intention to be married in July. To the long life and good health, then, of Miss Chandler and Mr. Maybrick." If only they knew then what we know now. Anyway, I apologise for the delay in this video. I have done the meeting and the engagement. I will do the marriage in another one, and when I get my arse into gear, I will do it quite quickly. So thank you very much for being patient and listening to this one. See you in the next one.